Second.
Thank you. The first thing we want to do is just get our final yearly or quarterly report from Evan this year with the Port Authority. So Evan, the microphone up there is yours.
I'll be brief in this section. I look forward to participating throughout the meeting on some of these topics. But it has been a busy year. Appreciate your support and really look forward to working with you all in the city of Steubenville throughout 2015. I guess quickly what's been happening recently, we've had some meetings with the pipeline companies that are coming into the area. That's the trend I think you're going to see is even more activity, more of the supply chain in the oil and gas drilling industry, looking at our area, especially as new pipelines come online and make it easier to distribute the oil and gas that are taken out of the ground in our area. So those conversations have been interesting. In one of the conversations, I was able to bring up the city's plans to sell water to the industry. And we're able to talk specifically about Steubenville. That was last month. More specifically at the Port Authority, it's been great having Colleen Peckins now on staff. She's our new assistant, started in October, so she's really digging into the sites and building database. So we talked about it at past meetings. That's a big function of her job. So I brought copies with us if you want to look at these after, but we are getting very busy and really updating all of those sites. I brought some of the higher profile examples, if you will, of Steubenville properties. Since I've been here, some folks have taken a preliminary look at, for instance, the Grant School lot that you own at the corner of 4th and South. So look forward to talking to you further about that. If you have more definite ideas of price points and how you'd like to possibly sell that in the future, I think that's an important discussion going forward. Because again, that whole area, it's part of our downtown, but it does have great access to State Route 7, so folks are starting to ask questions about that area. So we profiled that. We have examples of the Genesis Steel property right around the corner on the south end there. We featured in our newsletter this month, if you saw it, Tom Schloss's property on Brady. That's the 6,000 square foot building as you're making the curve there. So some great properties in Steubenville. It's our job to profile them and get, again, this is the online database. Anyone in the world looking for information in our area can just click the database through our website. And it's also tied in to the whole state system. Our website just shows Jefferson County properties, but if we have a lead through the state of Ohio, the Jobs Ohio process, we respond back to those leads just by clicking these links and directly attaching these property profiles. So it's a nice system that the state of Ohio and the governor's office asks us to use. So that's really been a focus. Started talking with Tim about some more direct visitation of businesses. We just started that discussion tonight. That's an area, as I look forward to 2015, I need to do more of a job of internal marketing and interaction with the existing business community. We're trying to roll out several marketing initiatives and website upgrades to speak to the outside world, but I need to do more interaction with the existing business community that we have. First of all, always looking for threats of businesses that are not doing well or possibly leaving our community, but maybe more importantly right now in our area, looking for opportunities. Because again, go back to the oil and gas opportunities, a lot of local businesses have possibilities to expand and grow into those markets. So I look forward to working with Tim and the administration on that discussion going forward. So I think I'll leave it there. Again, look forward to participating throughout the rest of the meeting. All of your downtown development work, we don't ignore that as a Port Authority. We're focused on a lot of industrial development work, hopefully with large-scale job creation. But as I look to 2015, I've made some contacts throughout my career in Ashland County and then at the state, development specialist in the downtown space. So if I can be of service, bringing some fresh eyes and developing the community, I want to play that role in the near future. So, thank you, Greg.
I didn't stay up there.
Okay.
A couple things. First of all, we've gone from North End through the Central Business District on some walks. So you talked about the downtown, and you talked about having on the website an inventory of properties. Based off of what you've seen with these walks, there's potential, and there's places that we could, groom and have available. What are you going to do with that information and that? Are you going to work with Tim and try to get some more inventory put on the website of our downtown area?
Well, yes, all those sites have individual listings in the database. I think I've talked to you in the past about what I call the development zone concept. I'm also trying to work toward not just the individual listings, but creating basically a marketing poster or flyer, if you will, that points to several of these lots. Because the challenge you have is they're smaller lots. A lot of them are contiguous, and I think we need to show the industry, again, the oil and gas industry, that there is potential for perhaps some light industry on the edge of downtown, maybe through some creative land assembly, combining parcels. So that's my goal. It's a bit of a challenge because several property owners haven't gotten back to me yet with asking prices and specifics about their property. But that's my goal, would be to create those zones, if you will, the north zone, the south zone, showing all the properties, and then develop a target market list of consultants and businesses we should be mailing those to.
Okay, and with that, we know there's property we own, there's private owners. Are we going to look at doing some sort of private-public partnership to help get these properties marketed or have them available, down the line with these oil and gas opportunities?
I don't know if it needs to be a private-public partnership, but I think just for starters, just to show all the various properties, many of them which are contiguous. Like you said, one is the Grant School lot owned by you. Right around the corner is the Genesis Steel property that they're telling me is for sale. With some creativity, the right industry could use both sides for one operation. So I think maybe we'll work toward solidifying the relationship with the port, like for the Grant School lot. We're on record as the manager of the county's industrial park, for instance. We don't own it, but we manage it for them. We take it prospects through the vetting process and prepare it for potential sale. We'd be interested in performing the same role for the city as prospects come forward, hopefully soon, for that property.
With that river pipeline that's being proposed, did you attend that meeting?
The public meeting, yes.
Yes, okay, and so you're aware of what's going on and the potential that that could bring Jefferson County and hopefully into the city of Steubenville as well too.
Right, yeah, it's hard to have the perfect crystal ball, but everyone's saying we expect drilling to increase, assuming the price points are right for the drillers, because it's much easier access to the distribution network now. So, and then that's going to bring, I would say, even more suppliers, so everything from trucking to pipes to all the supplies that go into the industry are starting to focus on this area.
Tim?
Thank you, Greg. And Council, I just first of all want to thank and recognize Evan for his efforts. He's been extremely responsive throughout the year and continues to be as we come up with initiatives and ones and trying to continue momentum in things that we have underway. So I certainly appreciate his efforts. Two things, and Evan's been working, and I think we've mentioned, although we haven't been able to go into too much detail, but we certainly have been working on a couple of retention projects that we're trying to retain businesses and keep jobs and hopefully really expand investment in the city. But the concept, and Evan alluded to it, the business retention, expansion, attraction, and creation type of program, and very standard in many regions and communities. And he and I and Chris Petrozzi did meet on this, and certainly we believe there's a need for more outreach to our existing businesses and setting up meetings with them. And I think one of the hardest things you can hear from a business is, if they decide to leave or close shop, that no one was aware of it. Nobody knew that that business was going to do that, or was in that type of situation. So it is something that we are actively planning to pursue starting in 2015. We believe that we want to start out identifying businesses in our downtown and throughout the community that we need to and feel that it would be important for us to reach out to and meet with. And I just appreciate Evan's expertise in that area and his participation. I think certainly between the Port Authority and the city, and in particular Evan and Chris, I think we can, there'd be great value in having a true BREAC program in the city.
Right, I couldn't agree more. We've contemplated at the port level creating a similar type visitation program, because we need to do it. That's, I would argue, even more important than outward marketing. If you don't take care of what's here and make sure they're happy and there's opportunity to grow and you're meeting your local business's needs, there's no use in doing your outward marketing, because you're losing here and gaining on the other side. In my career, I've always been a fan of doing it in partnership with the city, just like you're saying. So I look forward to rolling this out with communities throughout the county. Sometimes you'll see economic development offices try and start visitation programs on their own. I've never been a fan of that, because usually more than half the questions or concerns that come up deal with your local government issues, whether it's permitting questions or water and sewer capacity or rates. And I'd be calling you anyway.
It's about being business friendly.
Right.
So, to be quite honest, that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought it forward. It meets our plans and goals very well, so moving forward to 2015. And like you said, yes, we're having good conversations with two businesses right now with great opportunities to grow. And we need to make sure we're always finding those situations early before they decide to do it elsewhere. So.
Any other questions from members of council?
Yeah, I have something, Greg.
Yes, Bob.
I got this article of the Pittsburgh Business Times, and there was a meeting held at Florian Hall, quarters of Pittsburgh, which come down to address some things pertaining to Steubenville. Ed Lumen was there, and there was about 5 or 6 people there, was my understanding, and it was $55 per person to get into that. And I had no knowledge of this whatsoever, and to my knowledge, nobody from the city of Steubenville attended this at all.
I don't believe so. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody from the city of Steubenville attended it, because I was contacted by a couple of people that were at the meeting, and they were a little bit astounded that nobody was here. In the future, if we could notify council that these things are going on, we get emails every day about light up night, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and this was pretty important, I think, and I would have definitely liked to attend, even at my own cost. It was $55. If maybe we could have a little bit better communication, because people come down from Pittsburgh to talk about Steubenville, Ohio. Nobody from the city's there. It's kind of a little bit embarrassing when people start calling. And that's all. Just maybe a little bit better, outreach that we can talk. I'm very pro Port Authority, you know that. I've been pro, Port Authority since I got in council. I'd like to see a little bit better communication. I think somebody from the city of Steubenville should have been at that meeting.
And they asked me to be a panelist, and I did ask them a couple times, please call Tim or the mayor, since they're calling it, Steubenville's in the title. I did request that of them, but they called their own meeting and asked me to be a panelist, so.
Evan, what was the meeting about?
The concept is, they have these meetings throughout the corridor, from Steubenville all the way over to Beaver County, and they call it the Corridors of Opportunity Series. And they try and bring business leaders from the greater Pittsburgh region to these outlying areas to hear more about the area, opportunities. So I told them a little bit about your downtown revitalization plans and meetings and strategies, told them about some of the Port Authority's initiatives. It's mainly just for Pittsburgh business leaders to understand some development opportunities here in these markets that they might not be as familiar with. And that's it. 5 years ago, I believe Progress Alliance was part of the planning of the event and put some sponsorship money forward. When they first called me about this several months ago, I made it clear that we didn't have any sponsorship money budgeted, so the port wasn't a part of the meeting. I was just a panelist.
Thank you.
I look around here and I've seen the same old faces. So I think, like you said, Tim, the mayor, we're going to have to go out and reach these people that do not participate in our community. Business people, property owners, realtors, they have a vested interest. And since we've invited them by words, letters, no interest whatsoever. I'm all for the small business people. I'm very upset with that one individual, so I hope you follow up on it. As you well know, I'm on the Metropolitan Housing Authority Board. We're going to start cleaning house. I don't mean Navy. When people come into this town, the first thing they look at is crime. We have our share. I know the individual who put together the package over in Hancock County, Chrysler. First thing they asked for. So I think we're on the right step, but I think everybody got to get in that hole and pitch in and stop complaining and get this town cleaned up. So that's all I can say. I'm a brick and mortar man. I want to see something built. Thank you.
You're off the hot seat for now. Next item on the agenda is a continuation of a discussion that happened a month ago. It was about branding the city. Council should have received these, whether they were at the meeting or in your packets. The mayor got his, but Joe Brown from Peebles Group was here, presented what her company does for branding in the community, presented a proposal to Tim, and I think, Tim, you wanted to talk about it, but we also wanted to submit it out for a bid from other vendors as well, too. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, Greg, I appreciate it. This was a presentation at the Economic Development Committee meeting in October. And it was a presentation on branding or rebranding of our community image, an image, campaign, I guess, image review and analysis of the city's image, certainly under the category of how do we better market or more effectively market our community be able to, again, leading right into economic development, this will enable us to attract businesses, attract investment to the community, and obviously that will improve our quality of life. The program itself is one, again, rebranding and imaging is one that many communities engage in. They see it as an integral part of economic development, and the People's Group is a firm that is very prominent, particularly in central Ohio, central and eastern central Ohio, in working with communities. And I know some of the feedback that I received from downtown businesses, Greg, that were at that meeting. They were very, I think, supportive and responsive to the presentation that was made by Ms. Bryan. And I think we're at the point of considering whether to pursue this. What's the next steps? And if we do pursue it, and in discussing it with Gary, and I'm in complete agreement that what we would want to do is issue a request for proposals for firms. Certainly, I would want to include People's Creative Group, but there are other firms that really do this work as well. And issue a request for proposal, request for qualifications, and evaluate those, and be able to move forward with this initiative. Talk to Stacy as well, and it's something that we have been working on to try to absorb that in the 2015 budget. So it would be something that we would certainly need to budget for, and in the CIP. But essentially, it's a way of, I think, tackling our most important marketing variable, which is our image and our brand, and not necessarily how we see ourselves, but as the outside world sees us, and how we would like to be seen. So it's a pretty intensive effort. I think, as Ms. Bryan mentioned, it's not 1 month and we're done. It's a fairly exhaustive, I wouldn't say exhausting, but exhaustive process. And it would seem that we are at that point to either decide to do this or reconsider it in 2015 if there isn't support for it. And if there is support, I would recommend that we, at the Sunshine meeting next week, if it does come out of committee, that the Sunshine committee meeting would sunshine a ordinance or resolution, whichever Gary felt was appropriate, for us to issue that request for proposal qualifications and to move forward.
So
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I think one of the goals is defining who we are and what we want to be, and providing the game plan and template for Evan to run with this, along with Chris, in spurring economic development, in the downtown and obviously in the city. I did read the proposal, and I do agree we need to look at doing an RFQ. There may be local or agencies that might want to bid on this that have a vested interest in the city of Steubenville as well too. So I think we should open it up. So I would agree that we do an RFQ. I know committee members, has council had a chance to review the packet from Peoples?
I'm looking at it now.
I just got it right here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. So let's review it, take a look at it, review it. The proposal she gave us had different levels. It was like going out to a restaurant, and you could pick or choose, your appetizers, your salads, your dinners, your desserts, at different price levels. And I kind of thought some of the price levels were a little bit stiff, in my opinion. 5,000 here, 7,000 here, 10,000 here, and it adds up. All of a sudden, you're at over $100,000 to run a branding campaign. I kind of was like, wow, we have other issues. So that's why I wanted to see if we can definitely do an RFQ and kind of determine what we want to do. We have a website. Can we just refine the website, not retool it, or rebuild it, just kind of clean it up a little bit. So that's the idea of, I think council needs to look at what we want to do with this brand, what tools we want to give out, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I would agree, Greg, and I do like, excuse me, and I think council will see when you review, and I guess this is one example of a rebranding and imaging program. I do like the way they put different things in different line items, like a menu. And we need to define our scope, I believe, and really focus on what we need. This could be over a number of years or quarters or whatever, but I think we need to focus very much on image and branding and that analysis and things that we can do to positively influence that. And that's really where the focus should be and where we put our cost, or the cost should be, and our resources should go to where we can make the most immediate impact and far-ranging impact.
Kenny?
Yes, as a member of the Economic Development Committee, I think it's vital, so I would definitely second the motion to bring it out of committee. And remember that a year or two ago, we did something on these lines when we had a big issue in town, and people from out of town were here, every weekend protesting and so on and so on. But we didn't follow up, Tim, and that I think is where the problem lies. If we choose to do this, and I think we should, I think you said it, but it's got to be an ongoing, it's got to be a lengthy process, because we definitely, without question, need to change the image. If you talk about people from Pittsburgh want to come here, they're not going to come here with the image that we have now. So I think that's the first step, and I would definitely support the right way of doing it, but also know that it has to be a continuous effort. It can't be a 6-month campaign. We're not running for election. We're trying to change the outlook of our city.
Right. It's long-term and kind of gets a commitment.
Correct.
I would agree.
That's fine, thank you. Angie?
Just at first glance, people's presentation, it's very nice, and I'm not in sticker shock looking at the prices over here. However, I think that when you said extensive, that's what first came to mind, is do we have, once again, capacity to do this? Who's going to be able to take on this? Because this is a huge project. Is this going to come straight from economic development? Are we going to ask the Port Authority for assistance? Are we going to go to the Steubenville violation group? Who are we pulling in to work with this?
Well, and I think that's a great question, Angie. I think that certainly from a capacity and operational standpoint to move it forward, that's part of what we would be paying for. That's what Peoples or whatever consultant the city hires would, that's to a great extent what we'd be paying for. So, and certainly when we review the proposals that we receive from different consultants, we would want to make certain that we have as much support, because I know Chris and Alvin, I don't have really we could absorb a branding campaign, but I don't think that is what we would be doing internally. Would be just dividing our resources even more and not being able to focus on it. Our return would not be as great if we did that. I suppose the Economic Development Committee would be a strong shepherd for this initiative. It does seem to be an economic development program, and I know that part of a great deal of that guidance would need to come from the committee and the council as a whole, of course. But as to other groups, I know Evan, you may want to comment, you may not want to comment, but since I'm just kind of throwing this over the railing at you, but you know, certainly the port benefits from these efforts, and you know, the improvement in the city's image and brand, in our the way if investment is increased, or we want to invest more in our community, that makes your job a lot easier, does it not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, we talk a lot about infrastructure, site readiness, and those are important first steps, but if the image isn't there, it's so competitive these days. That's the bottom line. I'm trying to hammer home to all of our stakeholders. If they don't like Steubenville for the image, they can go to St. Clairsville and find similar opportunities in the industrial world. So, yeah, we need to embrace our competitiveness in every area. The image is definitely one of them.
Tim, so at this time, all we're looking for is legislation just to do an you keep saying RFQ. I'm sorry for.
Request for qualifications.
Qualifications. Oh, I was used to RFP, so I was just like, what? I thought he was saying the wrong letter. Okay, I should have trusted you. Anyway, at this time, you're just asking for RFQs, nothing else, just so we can look at some other companies who are similar to people.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think with that, Angie, this people's packet that we have in front of us is a good starting point to look at, you know,
It's informational.
what
Could be.
we should really garner. Image is the biggest thing, and we've talked about that, especially when we were, you know, hiring a city manager last year. Image is one of the biggest things we wanted to improve upon. And with this being said, I think we could look at this sort of a la carte menu. Can you have it right? It's an ongoing process. So Tim, what I'd like to see is how much we could put in the budget for next year, because we know we're not going to swallow the whole thing, but yet we could start with the ongoing process with what we feel as a committee and council the most important issues to attack with this grant.
Great. Oh, and one other thing, last week, I said that, upping the ante that we're going to contribute to the Port Authority was an investment in our future. And I would take that next step. I don't want to everybody think that Kenny Davis has an open checkbook up there. Monies are coming from anywhere. But at the same time, I think the RFQ is the right way to go, because that way you're not committing to the lowest bidder. You're looking for the most qualified. And so I think it's very important that we do it right, and the public understand that if we spend this money, it's the reason for it, and Evan just said it. I mean, that, he does this every day, 8 days a week. And he's trying to, how many times we lose something, little Fallensby, because of an image. And I think that's why it's that important.
Exactly. So the committee, Tim, if you can, there's no other questions on this, we'll have the law director get a legislation for us essentially next week to do an RFQ. Angie?
Be happy to do that.
Great. Okay. And I would recommend council to please delve into, I've read this a couple of times, but go into what Peoples has presented and come up with some thoughts and ideas as we move on this subject.
Please, council, please feel free to contact me if you, after you've reviewed that, if you have any questions about it, or what this initiative may or may not do, or what the potential is for. I'd be happy to discuss that with you.
Thank you. Moving on, Tim, on the subject matter is the downtown revitalization strategic plan, several bullet points that you wanted to go over with us.
I would appreciate that, Greg, and in the essence of time, I want to, I certainly want to give ample amount of time to downtown revitalization. Try to reserve some time for number 6 if I can as well. I think probably is a little more important than number 5 just for this evening. But I will move forward then. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Downtown, what you have in your package is kind of our ongoing downtown revitalization strategic plan. We've established our goal, and certainly council's discussion on this and any concerns or things that maybe we should spend more time on than other things would be greatly appreciated. But to give an overview for about 5 or 10 minutes, certainly the Civic Plaza under the category of public sector improvements and investment goals is a potential catalytic development in the sense that it could be a game changer in our downtown. What we are trying to do with downtown and revitalization, 2 key components is you need people coming to your downtown, and you need buildings or areas or locations to come to. And I think the Civic Plaza is certainly our comprehensive plan outlined and highlighted is a key component of that. As council may recall, I did reach out to our neighbors across the street, the county commissioners, and requested that we begin discussions on a partnership or how we could best partner on this project, and I anticipate trying to meet with the commissioners on this topic, hopefully before the end of the year, probably in the next couple weeks or so. We're trying to set up a meeting to do that. I think partnership, in my opinion, partnership with the county is extremely important. We need to work on some initial cost estimates for that project, and then where our funding sources would be. So we will continue to keep council apprised of those efforts. Most of our efforts have been concentrated obviously in the central business district. In talking with Chris, and I know at our last budget meeting, we did identify, I believe, $30,000 for potential downtown revitalization activities. Those included streetscape improvements, looking at initiatives such as tax increment financing. I think whether we can hold firm at that number or not, I think just depends on really the strength of the budget and what we want to try to accomplish in downtown revitalization in 2015. We did have a meeting last week. Chris worked with the Steubenville Revitalization Group to have Jeff Sigler come from Heritage, Ohio, over at the Visitor Center. He presented the Main Street program and also special improvement districts to those that came to that meeting, and it was a very, I think, a very effective meeting. It really showed a number of the types of initiatives that we need to be undertaking if we want a robust revitalization program. One of the things that we talked about was property maintenance, building code enforcement, and I know Chris and I have discussed it a little bit. Earlier this year, we had Chris pass some a little more beefed up vacant property ordinances I suppose in this discussion, I have quite honestly asked Chris to look a little bit more, work with Gary on the strength of our vacant properties ordinance. Jeff Sigler mentioned the Sandusky, Ohio model as kind of the most effective vacant property ordinance in what he felt was one of the more effective ones in the state. Certainly access to vacant properties, how we address the vacant properties in our downtown is obviously key. We're at a tipping point with those buildings, whether we're going to lose them altogether or bring them back to productive use. And I think we're right at that point with many of those buildings. So,
Yeah, Tim, you saw that along with Evan in our committee during our walks firsthand, that we have pointed out. Kenny, there was some that you looked at and said, structurally, it's a beautiful structure, but potentially is what's inside that we can save, and I think that's important.
But absolutely, and so we revitalization is always incentives and investment and infrastructure, but code enforcement and making certain property owners maintain their buildings is critical, very, in that as well. The special improvement districts and talking about the Main Street program. Yeah, those really aren't an either or. They are two initiatives that could occur in our downtown, but quite honest, and I think it was emphasized in that meeting that city can't do it alone and business community can't do it alone. We need to partner if we're going to move forward on a special improvement district and Main Street as well. There needs to be a partnership and a commitment on both partners to move forward in those areas. So I'm going to mention that a little bit later in my presentation. I think the town and gown type of initiative, it kind of harkens back to the Kent State model or Kent, Ohio model, and certainly that I sensed a need to have a stronger relationship with the university, and I think they sense the need for a stronger relationship for our mutual benefit and for the benefit of this community. And I think we need to focus on that as we move forward with our implementing our downtown revitalization strategic plan. So there are a number of other initiatives in our strategic plan. If you go down to the very last item, action plan, I felt these were items that we could and should take action on at this point in time. But there's no reason why we can't do that. The first bullet is public and private partnership. The model certainly could be the Economic Development Committee and the SRG working together to prepare specific recommendations for revitalization, where we would look at and have working group sessions. And it's presentations are great, but I think we need and could benefit very much from working groups where we or working meetings where we decide, what would a special improvement district look like? Who would be the participants? What would be the benefit of it? And come back to council with that, with those recommendations on things like that, special improvement districts, Main Street program, and prioritize them. That these are the things we ought to do, and we ought to do them at this point in time, or wait for some other time to do them. And I think we're at a point we can move forward. We've had a lot of great meetings and discussions, but I do think we're at a point where we can take action on these. I already mentioned the Civic Plaza. We're going to be taking the steps hopefully on the rebranding project. Chris, internally we're developing our database where we really need a better handle, I believe, on all of our buildings and properties in the central business district. Who are the businesses, who are the property owners, and then kind of falls into the next step, what's identifying our most endangered buildings in our central business district, develop a plan to address that situation, whether it's code enforcement or incentives. Part of that has to be a meeting with the owners of those buildings and how we can move forward to save those buildings. If we lose more buildings in our downtown, I fear that we won't really lose competitiveness. And then finally, developing a matrix of revitalization programs that are available for developers to use. So I'm hopeful that the committee will support these initiatives. We are ready to move forward. One other initiative that I mentioned in the report was I know Chris is reaching out to Heritage Ohio to identify development firms that have developed downtowns throughout Ohio, and if you call them catalytic development firms, those that have done this work in Kent, have done this work in Youngstown, have done this work in other communities, and we need to have a relationship with those. Maybe on a very general level, where they tell us some of the things we need to do, or why they haven't come to us in the past and tried to develop it. We need to know that. But then longer term, trying to get these developers to come to our community and help us redevelop our downtown. Again, city simply cannot do it alone. We don't have a big enough budget, and no community does. But I think with these partnerships that we're trying to forge, we have a good chance of being able to make a major impact in 2015. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wow, that's a lot of data. But one of the things that talked about before, and this partnership, public-private, I agree with. I think our committee, our Economic Development Committee, should approach the SRG about discussions with the Special Improvement District downtown, and then going, of course, into the discussions of Main Street and Heritage Ohio. I'd like to have our committee, I could reach out to the SRG to get this going, but I also like to have Chris Petrozzi be a part of it yourself. And Evan, whenever you have time, we'll let you know when these meetings are, and if you're available, we'd love to have your input as well too. And also that way where we're moving at, as much as we can keep you informed. Okay. Committee, okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move forward with that. Tim, tomorrow, we should reach out, maybe early afternoon, we could make a phone call. Okay. As far as the other things, I know the RFQ committee is going to bring out into an ordinance next week at the Sunshine Meeting, and you mentioned the bullet points of this database with our CDD buildings and, of course, our endangered buildings. That is being internally done with Chris, so I don't know if there's anything we need to proceed with at this point other than let's get it done. We've seen, firsthand every building and the issues with them. So I think that's a doable thing.
We are doing that right now, taking care of a database for those downtown buildings that we could smell the mildew and smell it was, Kenny and I were standing right there in front of a building out here. I'm not going to mention the name, you could just smell it. You could smell the water coming. One building we saw that had broken windows, so we know there's a lot of water damage there also.
Right.
I think that would, we need to get those owners on the same page with us, and I think, I'm glad we're starting that, I really am. Because it opened my eyes that day, as we were walking down. I mean, you drive by in a car, I don't have it on, but anyhow, you drive by in a car, you don't see it all. You walked, we saw, we looked, you could, just the smell of some of the buildings we walked by, Kenny and I just, it was just different. It needs improvement, it really does. If we want to go forward with what we're talking about here. And I commend you on taking the initiative to do this.
Well, I appreciate, Willie, I mean, these are, having historic, interesting, significant buildings in your downtown is vital. And we have those, albeit some of them are in a lot of, we may not have them.
Disarray?
In a year or two or more from now, we may not have those. And each one we lose is, in my opinion, sets us back significantly.
Room for more murals, I think. You put another mural up on another building, it just, we don't need more murals. I mean, we have enough, but I think we need the buildings that we have here to stand and stay.
And be filled up with businesses.
With businesses.
Question.
Yes.
Have we, Tim or Chris, we as a committee with Evan, we walked and we looked and we were outside. Have we gone inside any of these buildings? Or could we, Chris, some of the more important ones take a look at once this process is started? Simply to say, okay, you know, we're looking from the outside, and I agree. I made a statement, and Tim, you said to me that day, you know, we don't want it, Evan. You don't want to tear these buildings down. You want to save these buildings. But I think to get a real understanding, I think maybe there's a few of them that we should get access to and maybe see what is it going to take when we're trying to figure out this whole process.
A couple comments. You know, we certainly want to sit down with those property owners and discuss with them. Well, certainly why we're where we're at, but more importantly, how we can move forward with them. Having said that, enforcement is a key element that we have in our toolbox. It certainly, and the Main Street, the Heritage Ohio pointed out that there is an importance and a value in getting inside the building. I think that's obvious. That's common sense. There are some legal hurdles, Chris, I would imagine, for any community to do that. We're talking about private property. That being said, Sandusky apparently has there are models out there of communities who have been able to navigate that. And I want to be able to make certain that we are, and I know Chris does as well, to make certain that we're navigating that to the best of our ability. And obviously we'll work with Gary on that. But I don't know, not getting into the buildings seems to be problematic to me. So. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it did. At least I know I'm thinking the right way. That's what you're thinking.
Tim, I know you wanted to save a little bit of time for oil gas, the strategic plan. You got 2.5 minutes.
I got 3 minutes. I'd be happy to do that. We also have included in the packet the oil and gas and drilling industry, our bulk water strategic plan. This has been a work in progress and a very important initiative that we need to continue to make progress on. Certainly we have some things that we've been doing is getting a better handle on our current operations, what our capacity is, how much product can we supply without endangering or affecting, I should say, our ability to serve our customers, review of our truck staging areas, servicing capacity, impact on our staff at different levels of production. So what we try to do is put together, albeit a business plan, if you will, for us to be in this, robustly be in bulk water sales plan. In your packet, there is a draft letter that we have put together that we're going to address we've identified our customer base, 28 firms in the oil and gas and drilling industry that we believe are ones that we need to contact. Shortly putting, we also provided an ad that we would be putting in the Shale Play magazine shortly, that again gets the word out that we are in this business. I've made some contacts as well, personal contacts with those in the industry. And I know, Evan, you've reached out to some, the possibility of talking to water service consultants, correct?
This came up in the meeting with the Regency Pipeline folks.
Right.
That was on the pipeline path to the county, but I just happened to bring up your oil and gas plans. Just coincidentally, they have a consultant in-house that helped the city in Pennsylvania set up a water station. So it sounds very similar to what you all are thinking about, so trying to get in touch with them. That meeting just happened about 10 days ago. We need to track down that specific consultant.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tim, that's been the biggest thing, is we've talked about it, Kenny, we've talked about it, is the staging area. But when you put this ad in, that damn sure zero on my phone number.
Thank you. I can assure council that was caught earlier, before the copy was made, but before the meeting.
There's another typo there too.
Thank you. These are traps. But yes, we will do that. And we do have, we have a boilerplate agreement available. We have our pricing structure. I think we have our marketing plan in terms of the revised letters and ads. And our networking is continuing to grow with Evan's assistance as well. So it's an ongoing effort. I think we're aware of some operations. The closest operations, was it you, Evan, or Chris, that we know? Is it Bridgeport? Is that? Maybe I heard that from somewhere else.
Antero and Gulfport, they have Marietta and St. Clairsville offices. I would suggest going straight to those field offices.
Right, but I mean, in terms of water servicing, but I think it's, I'll confirm where the nearest location is, but I think that will be important for certainly Chuck Murphy and Chris and myself, if possible, to go out there and, see what, how those operations are working, and maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. That's pretty much where we are at with the station.
I don't see any questions, but I think this is a great tool to move forward with. Something we've been talking about now. There's an actual strategic plan in place for you guys, so we're very happy about that.
Very good, thank you.
What committee would this be under? Well, I'd like to be part of this.
You can.
We're getting water.
Is it service? Is it, I would like to be part of this.
You're involved.
I have some ideas, and I really think it might help.
You're involved. Go for it. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
It's coming out of the economic
Come out of us.
development.
Okay.
But there's room in there, the one, I put it away, the one committee that we want to put together, so we'll be involved in.
Yeah, that's that economic, or offshoot the downtown strategic improvement, special improvement district with the SRG.
And
Utilities.
certainly would think utilities is a possibility, but regardless, any input.
Okay.
We don't,
But I can't give you any input if I don't know what's going on until we come to a meeting and then I see it, I'm just like to be there while it's coming about.
You're right.
I'm done, thank you.
Any other questions on members of council? Okay, a lot of stuff to digest. We will have a meeting, another economic development committee meeting, maybe early January, sometime. get through some of these things and get these things developed, and then get back right away with it. Mayor, I'm going to move to re-adjourn the Economic Development Committee and go to your meeting.
Second.
To break.